You're tuned in to Huntsville Insider. Your inside source for all things Huntsville. And now, here's Mike and Will.
All right, guys, welcome in. We are sitting here with Mayor Tommy Battle, and we want to thank you guys for tuning in to the program today. We are very excited to talk with Mayor Battle. Mayor Battle, we do welcome you. So if you folks listening at home did not know, Mayor Battle announced in April that he will be seeking the big seat in Montgomery, the governor's office. And we will be getting to that announcement and see how Mayor Battle feels about that and what his direction for our state will be here in just a little bit. But we'd like to talk a little about where you came from, kind of what brought you into the city of Huntsville, kind of discuss some of the many things that you and your staff have accomplished in your almost 10 years in office now. But first, Mayor Battle, we have a lot of new people that are arriving to the city almost daily. A lot of new tech groups are coming in, and what can you tell us a little bit about the history of the city?
You know, it's kind of interesting. We started off as a cotton and watercress town.
Yep.
Who would ever think? You know, we were the watercress capital of the world, and we had lots of cotton gins and doing a lot of cotton. And with the cotton came the looms and the milling and the mills that came along, and we were really an agricultural society. Then in the late 1940s, there was a competition for a wind tunnel that was going to be put up. The federal government was going to put up a wind tunnel, and we competed for that, and we came in second. Tullahoma, Tennessee won the wind tunnel. And when they won the wind tunnel, one of the senator from Tennessee, who was a very strong senator back then, looked at a young John Sparkman who just lost that and said, "I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll give you a team of German scientists who can move here."
Oh, there you go.
And so we got, as a booby prize, we got a team of German scientists, and they really turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to us. That started us into rockets, and rockets took us into space, and space took us to the moon and with NASA. And then we got into the aerospace business and planes and all kind of aerodynamic things. And as you watched, you know, we ended up with we started off with an arsenal that was really a missile arsenal, and now today it does 85% of America's missile defense work. But it also does, you know, has a broad portfolio, everything from the FBI to Army Material Command, where they buy everything the soldier eats, wears, buys, shoots, does anything with is there.
Right.
And so we've gotten a very diversified portfolio there, but beyond that, we've been able to diversify our outside portfolio with companies like Remington and companies like Polaris and companies like GE Aviation, you know, Rocketdyne Aerojet, Blue Origin. As we've been able to move through that, we've been able to diversify our whole economy here in Huntsville. So we're not just dependent on one sector. We've got a real broad range of success there.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people do know that we are renowned for our technology, but with folks like Remington coming in, Polaris, those guys, that kind of diversifies that. So what actually brought Mayor Tommy Battle to the city of Huntsville? Where are you from? Where'd you come originally? How'd you get here?
I came here in the restaurant business. When I came out of college, my dad had moved into an ownership position with Britling's Cafeterias, which was an old cafeteria chain that was around through the 1990s. And he said, "Come on in with us. Let's see what we can do." I came in with them. After 3 or 4 years, they decided I did such a good job, they decided to sell off all the units. So I'd done a great job, yeah. And so as they sold off the units, they said, "Well, listen, you know, we've got one banknote that we hadn't paid off, but you can pick up that banknote and you can you can buy that unit up in Huntsville. And
where were you at the time?
I was in Birmingham at the time. Born and raised in Birmingham.
Okay.
Raised on Rocky Ridge Road. Went to Berry High School, and so I came up here and looked. And when I came up and looked, this was on a Friday. I came back and I told my dad, I said, Dad, I don't know. I'm 24 years old. I don't need to be $230,000 in debt.
And what year was that?
And this was way back 1980. Before y'all guys were born.
So, not really, but back in 1980, $240,000. That was
a lot of money.
That was a lot of scratch.
And my dad looked at me and says, "Son, one of the wisest things anybody said, son, what do you got to lose?" He says, "I've seen your clothes. They wouldn't want your clothes. I've seen your car, and it's not necessarily something a bank would take back from you. They'd probably leave it with you. I've seen your furniture, and all you have is shellacked boards and concrete blocks out there where you put your stereo on and your speakers on." Said, "You don't have anything to lose." And I thought about it over the weekend, and I finally came back in on Monday. I said, "No, Dad, you're right. I don't have anything to lose." And so I came in and took over a restaurant. I owned a restaurant at age 24 in 1980 in Huntsville. The restaurant really owned me. I didn't own the restaurant.
And the name of that was
Britling Buffet.
So, what kind of grub did y'all serve?
We were meat and tater guys.
Meat and three.
Serve you. Worked turnip greens, green beans, a little bit of everything.
I'm going to Libby's after this.
This will make you hungry.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. It was a great business to be in for. And I stayed in it till about 1990. And in 1990, I went into the commercial real estate field, and then eventually came back to the government field. So,
okay. So the time frame that we have, when you were here in the 80s, early 80s, for a few years, what year was it that you first got kind of involved in Huntsville, I guess would say, politics?
Yeah. It really started off in those early Britlin's days. I worked in the kitchens at age 14, working in those kitchens and everything. And I always remember being downtown Birmingham, and I came upstairs one day, and in the upstairs room, they had Mayor Siebels and a bunch of business leaders who were sitting in there, and they were all trying to decide future vision of what Birmingham should be and how they should move forward and what they should do, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought that was really neat. I said, there's a group of people all with one common goal, wanting to make a city a better place. And I said, that's really neat. And so when I came to Huntsville, I was in the restaurant business, like I said, for about 4 years. And in 1984, there was a lot of turmoil on the city council. I didn't feel like they were supporting the mayor the way they should have, Mayor Joe Davis. And so I decided to run at age 28. I decided to run for city council. And we were too young and dumb to know we weren't supposed to win, and we did win. And all of a sudden I was sitting on city council, and it was a great experience, man, learning how the city works and what you do and what your role is as a councilman was a great experience for me and a great learning tool to know the community.
Well, that's fantastic. I got one more for you, and then I'm going to let Will jump in here.
Sure.
I'm not going to be Mr. Motormouth Mike. Mm-hmm. So is this information correct? So we actually, I found it on Wikipedia, which I found out today that you can actually edit anyone's page, anyone's site. So you probably want to go in there and change some things around.
I may have to. Sometimes they put me, Mrs. Battle has to call me and say, you need to correct this.
Well, after I got a hold of it, you probably definitely need to go change some things around, guys. So according to Wikipedia, you are a retired kindergarten teacher who won Teacher of the Year in the year 2000. Is this correct?
That is Mrs. Battle is a retired
Mrs. Battle
teacher.
Thank you.
Won Teacher of the Year.
I'm going, wait a minute. How does one jump from city council to being a kindergarten teacher?
Just called being very diversified, but no.
I think someone missed an R.
Right.
Because I was reading it going, this can't be true. So you may go.
Mrs. Battle is my source of information on education. I believe very strongly in education. Education is kind of the key to being able to grow. But when I get to have conversations about education, my first words are, I think we need to do this about education. And that's about as far as I get. Because then Mrs. Battle comes in and says, I have been in the classroom. I know what needs to happen. Let me tell you what needs to happen. So I get to listen to her for the next 30 or 40 minutes about what needs to happen in education. And she's right. She's been in the classroom and has firsthand information about it. And then if her sister's there, who's also been in the classroom for about 30 years, we get to listen to it for an hour and 15 minutes. And when that gets finished, the conversation's over. We go on to the next topic. So we might really know something about.
So she was in was it public schools?
She was a kindergarten teacher for 31 years, and ended up at Monrovia Elementary in Madison County, and just did a wonderful job. I was at the University of Alabama speaking to a young Republican crowd, and one of the young guys came up, and he's a freshman there. He said, "Are you Mrs. Battle's husband?" I said, "Yes, I am." And said, "Well, she was my kindergarten teacher at that was her last year. She was my kindergarten teacher, so it's kind of neat to catch up with what she would call her babies." And the big kids now, they're her babies always.
That's great. So we talked a little bit about how you got up here, how you kind of got your first start in city government. Going back and listening to some of your State of the City addresses over the past couple of years.
You listened to them?
Oh, yeah.
I did.
Did you
believe
really?
it or not, I watched them on YouTube and the whole thing.
Okay. No sleeping.
Without falling asleep.
I'm pretty sure I stayed awake.
Good.
I'm almost positive. I was late at night, but I'm pretty sure I got all of them.
Okay.
But no, you talked about, I guess, your philosophy and your vision for Huntsville, and it just struck me how it was a lot different than probably you hear a lot of mayors, even governors, probably talking about. And you talked a lot about, not just bringing industry to Huntsville, but making Huntsville a city that the people that industry is trying to recruit would want to live in. Talking about millennials and all that kind of thing. I think when I think of Huntsville history, I think of pictures of Von Braun and John Kennedy, Arsenal and all that kind of stuff. But, in a lot of ways, I think Huntsville has kind of paved the way, like you said, for missile defense with the country, but also probably been at the front of a lot of things, probably for the state of Alabama as well. And, for the last, several years, with very popular support, you've kind of been leading that. Yeah. And so if you wouldn't mind, just talk to us a little bit about, kind of coming into office, what your vision for Huntsville was, and kind of just how you got us to where we are today.
It was real interesting when we first came into office. We kind of sat back and said, let's put a strategy and a plan on how we're going to move forward and what we're going to do. And part of that strategy and plan was education. You had to have a good education system, and we came in. We brought in what would be called a change agent in education, Casey Wardinski, and he changed things. And change agents usually last 5 years. He lasted exactly 5 years. But he took us from a $20 million debt to where we had a surplus, where we were a good system that was turning into a better system and a better system, and so that was good. So we took on education, and then we tied that education in with the 2-year colleges and the 4-year colleges. The dual enrollment and some of those programs. Kind of integrated it all the way from kindergarten all the way up to your doctorate programs. The second thing we did was we said, we've got to have infrastructure. If we don't have an infrastructure, and most time in Alabama, infrastructure can mean roads, but it can also mean some other things. It can mean fiber to the home. It can mean mean your gas, your water, and your utilities and everything else. But we had to have a road plan so that we could grow, and as we continue to grow, that we could make sure that we continue to have that same quality of life, which is an average 18-minute commute to work, an average 18-minute commute back home. So we started working on road plans, and we went to, we had, when we first came in, we had something like $400 million worth of road plans the next 8 years. It was a great thing. Then the state said, well, we don't have the money to actually do that, so we can't do that. And so some of our plans got moved out to 2041, 2050, days that we knew that we couldn't wait for.
Right.
And so we went to the state and had some conversations. We tried to do A-trip funding we tried to do. I tried to get them to honor their commitments, and they couldn't do that. They said no on A-trip fundings because that's not what the funding was made for. And so finally we went to them and said, listen, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll put up 50%, you put up 50%. Over the next 5 years, we need to put up $250 million worth of road projects. And we'll put up $25 million a year. Y'all put up $25 million a year. And in 5 years, we'll be able to do some significant road projects that are all state road projects, state responsibility. But we'll be able to do those, and we'll be able to keep that quality of life moving forward. And they agreed, and so we started. Many people have probably seen the orange cones on South Parkway. Seen some orange cones
down there.
He works in the midst of it,
right in the midst of it. Yeah, the orange cones out on 72 East, and and some of the other projects that we're doing. But we were able to really kind of grab hold of our problem and really take it on and make sure that we could do something. We also, part of that infrastructure was fiber to the home. We said we've got to have fiber to the home. It gives you a whole shadow economy out there, and we had one person come up to us, young man came up to us at one of our neighborhood meetings and said, I'm glad you got fiber to the home because I can now work for my client and don't have to do my work piecemeal and take it to someplace to ship it. And I said, what do you mean? He says, I work for the city of San Francisco in their traffic engineering department. And I'll do designs for them and ship them out there. They'll mark them up, they ship them back. Now we have fiber to the home. I can do that every day and ship my product out there. They'll ship it back. I'll redraw it and get it done. And said at the end of the month, they send me a check. And their check comes from the city of San Francisco, but becomes part of Huntsville, Alabama's economy.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we had another young lady who came to us and said, well, I work for Disneyland in Orlando, and said I do mock-ups of new shows, new functions that they're going to put in, and so I send them down, they send them back, and said at the end of the month they send me a check, and that becomes part of Huntsville's economy. So
and when you say fiber to the homes, we're talking about like the Google fiber.
The Google fiber, yeah.
How big of a deal was that?
I can kind of weigh in here just a little bit
please
because
do.
I do know. My wife and I both work from home. So she's an engineer, and she does software-based stuff, but she supports a lot of pretty big heavy hitters, and she works remotely. We also own a business, and this business requires a lot of time on the internet as well. We were working with about 50 to 58 something MPS, and then now when the fiber became available, we gobbled it up real fast, and it's working at, when we do speed tests, it's around 900, and it's a game changer. And it's not just game changing, guys. It's life changing. It really is, because it makes you extremely efficient, and it makes you able to push a lot more stuff out. And so, it's amazing. It's great for the city.
It's kind of key to the city because it gives you that shadow economy, but also gives people the chance to do what you were talking about. They can live in a place that they think is a great place that attracts millennials and attracts everybody else, and they can work from home, and they can be working for San Francisco, or they can be working for a place in Orlando. They can work for somebody anywhere in the United States, but they decide this is where they want to live.
Right. Well, and you got the cost of living's cheap, but as far as the fiber goes, like getting to make that announcement, because there's only a handful of cities that have that
are good for fiber cities, and
for Huntsville, because I'll be honest, I have a buddy, he lives in Nashville, right? And he has some friends from other places in the country, and he grew up down the road in Athens. And they say, "Oh, so you grew up in Alabama? Did y'all have like running water and electricity?" No. And he just looks at him and he says, "My dad's a computer programmer for NASA. Yeah, we had
pair of Liberty overalls.
Yeah, but just being able to say something like that so unique is coming to Huntsville, Alabama. That had to have been exciting."
Well, it really was. When they first came in, we put out an RFP for request for information, RFI. For companies that wanted to provide fiber for the Huntsville area, and we got about 10 or 12 responses in, but nobody really would guarantee that they would put it everywhere. And then this group comes in who was Google, and at the time they didn't tell us their name. They just came to the first meeting, and while we were sitting there talking, they said, "Oh, by the way, we're from Google." At that point, we kind of our eyes lit up, and we said, "Wow,
go get the red carpet!
What a great day! Yeah, get them some Sundays or something, something here." So they really liked it. with those guys, you would probably go get them some Starbucks, but
right.
They all drink Starbucks.
Mocha chocolate.
Yeah, but it was really interesting when they came in because we've been working with Huntsville Utilities, and Huntsville Utilities didn't want to really be in the cable business, but they didn't want to be in the but they wanted to be able to provide a service for us, and fiber is just string and wire. That's what they do and do so very well. So they said, well, we'll put in the backbone of that fiber. We'll put the fiber in front of everybody's house in the city of Huntsville. It'll cost us about $60 million to do it, but then Google's going to lease that fiber from us for $6 million, which makes the bond payment and everything. They'll lease it from $6 million, and then they'll take it from your right of way in front of your house into your house, and they'll sell you content and everything else, which is a great deal. And so they got busy, and as soon as they got busy, about 2 or 3 other providers got busy too.
I saw a sign the other day. AT&T's doing it now, right?
AT&T, wow, everybody's doing it now, and they always do that. I mean, they always hold off their capital investment till they see somebody else that's going to maybe capture the market. So then they put in their capital investment. Right. So this worked out great, but. Going back to your original question, we did education, we did infrastructure, and the next stage was doing quality of life.
Right.
Things that attract people, that make them want to be part of your community. Big Spring Park, redoing it, bringing in food trucks and a guy playing guitar and 5,000 people show up. Who would have ever thought it? And in our days, food trucks were the last resort that you want to eat at, not the first resort.
With the episode we put out for this week, when you're listening to it, I guess it was
last week. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, because we talked about that. If somebody said, "Hey, let's go eat at a food truck," you think,
"Oh, you kidding me?" Yeah, I get salmonella.
Yeah. Billy Bob with his apron on and his goofy hat. Yeah, that's what we kind of talked about.
I mean, and when that got started, I guess I kind of have, in my mind, like, everybody up in top of City Hall, and, somebody says, "Hey, let's do, put food trucks on the street," and everybody just kind of looks at him like,
they throw him off.
How did that kind of get started?
So many communities fight that. I mean, and they really do, because the restaurants say, "Oh, you're going to be taken away from our restaurant business," and we can't do that. Our restaurants said after we did the first 2, because they got slammed, they got overrun, and they couldn't provide service. Is they said, "Hey, start bringing food trucks out to these things so that they can take off some of the pressure of the business, and we can actually take care of our customers well." And and that's part of it. You've got to talk to people and make sure that you're able to look at things and look at them with pretty much an open mind. We started doing festivals downtown, and then you started having craft breweries pop up, and who would think craft breweries are a great thing to attract millennials? They are.
It's huge. Yeah, it really is. Twice as many as Birmingham or something like that in the city of Huntsville.
Low Mill Art Center. It's over 200 working artists sitting in a little old mill building. Who are working on a day-to-day basis, but boy, it gives you something to make you want to be part of a community. Right. So as you go through those and you see some of those things that are happening and the quality of life added to it, and you've got your basic infrastructure things in place and your education in place, that's how we've been able to grow, is because we kind of put a formula to it and said, we're going to do this, this, and this. And if you remember, when I first came into office, 2008, 2009, we were in the middle of a recession. And was not a fun time.
Right.
And so we kind of doubled down on industrial development, because we knew everybody else would be kind of letting up on it. But you knew it was a cycle. And when that cycle came out, you wanted to be in the position to move forward and to be able to attract some of those industries. So if you worked with them while there wasn't a lot of business, they sure looked at you pretty strong when time was time to start expanding.
Right.
So absolutely. So that's we're talking about the Google Fiber, obviously, and I think we heard somewhere that the city of Huntsville is going to be used as a model to some of the other cities around. So
I'd suspect we will be the mid-tier city model that they'll use throughout the nation.
See, and that's absolutely incredible as well. So you've been elected as mayor 3 times to the city of Huntsville. And so in your nearly 10 years of serving as mayor, we know that you've worked on a ton of different projects. We're not talking about the one that you're most, the pride has nothing to do with this. What's the one that actually just really makes you smile, that makes you sit back, the one that you kind of talk about the most with your friends, with your family, and say, man, this was really cool?
Most of the projects we work on, after they hear the name, they go, wow, that's pretty cool that you brought in Remington. You know, they've got all the guns and everything else. I tried to get something in that contract that they bring the mayor out once a month to try out their new toys. But
I've got a buddy that works.
That didn't make it into the contract. But you know, you got Remington, you got GE Aviation, you got Polaris, and you look at all those that came along. They're all very, very special. But when we first started off, we started off with this little project called Redstone Gateway out at the UL, right at the entrance to the gateway, and we were working with some folks who had the Arsenal lease on how they were going to. They had the lease of the Arsenal land, so how they were going to develop out 4.5 million square feet of space, and the really great thing about it was that gave us extra office space beyond Research Park. We were down to about 400 acres left in Research Park out of 27,000, so. We were getting towards the end of that project, but we needed something that would, let us have more development room out there, and that was that project. And so the neatest one I think that we did, and unless you're in real estate or something, you probably don't. Most people just kind of nod their heads and say, "Yeah, that was really neat." But we set it up where we did $70 million worth of infrastructure there. And the company actually loaned the $70 million because at that time you could borrow money for 3 or 4%. And then we paid them back with the revenues that came off of their projects as they did them. As they did each project, they had property tax coming back in, but we'd pay them back at 9%. So, they got a 6% turn on it that they could actually put on their bank statement and everything. But we didn't have any risk out of it. And so with us having no risk, it was a great deal because we didn't have to. Excuse me, guys.
That's all right.
That was Mrs. Battle calling. She wanted to make sure I was doing okay.
This isn't live. She didn't hear us talking about it.
But we wanted to make sure that we didn't have any risk for the citizens of Huntsville. And so the end result is that out of that $72 million, that they get paid back over 25 years. And at the end of 25 years, if there's anything left over, that's their cost of doing business. And I always thought that was probably one of the fairest deals that we ever did because, it gave them the money to be able to do the infrastructure they needed to, but it also protected our taxpayers.
Sure, absolutely.
And that's the one that
really
I'm really the most proud of because our taxpayers are protected. They can't have a loss. A company can make money and they can make even some money off of their money if they move along very quickly. And but it works. It's a good win-win for everybody.
So it's talking about elections. So in 2016, when you were reelected, where were you? And when you got the numbers and the figures and realized that you won this vote by over 80% of the vote, how did that feel? Where were you? Was there high fives going around?
It felt good. It felt good, but you also knew that you had 20% of the people you still had to work on.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So, unless you get 100%, you're not totally accepted. But, it felt really good because I think people understood what we were doing, where we were going, what our plan was, what our strategy was. And I think they were buying into it. We won 2012 at 80%. We won 2016 at 81%. And it felt good because I think people realized how hard you were working and what you were working for, and it kind of validated the plans of what we were moving forward with. But I told our department heads, I said, that vote is now history, and it's the history on the last 4 years that we did. Now we're moving ahead for the next 4 years, and we've got to earn our keep. We've got to earn our due. It's kind of like Coach Saban. You get 24 hours to celebrate, and then you got to get working on the next year. But I think that's important for you is to realize, all that is great, but then it becomes history as soon as it's done. And then you got to work on what are you doing for me next? That's always the key.
Well, and I mean, it seems like there's in a lot of different areas, the next things have already started. Is it the project across from Big Spring Park? Is that Midtown? Is that the name of it?
Midtown, yeah.
You've got that. You've got places like the Avenue, amazing apartment, loft living downtown.
Yeah, hit on the Avenue too.
City Center is coming along out where Madison Square Mall used to be. And that one's coming up very, very quickly. When you look at it, I mean, all of a sudden you see the big nets up there for Top Golf.
That's right. That's what what it is. Yeah, I just remember.
What a picture to look at. You'll always know where Top Golf is because you can see it for miles and miles.
And for 32 years, my geography is still a little off. I'm like, yeah, that's where it is.
But we've done. We've been very fortunate, and those are what we call urban developments. In the first one, we had to work with the first urban development. That was Twickenham down there. Publix, hotel, office building, 240 apartments, and then a little retail strip center. We had to work on it. And when we did it, the main key need in there was parking. So we put together a parking deck for them. It was a $12 million parking deck. Huntsville Hospital paid $2 million of it. The developers paid $1.8 million of it. So we were down to $8.2 million that we had invested in it. And the project kicked out about 3.4 million a year. And so, you ended up with about a 3-year payback. And it was our first urban development.
ROI right there.
Yeah, it's a good ROI. My real estate years, anything that you get payback in 4 to 5 years, boy, it was a slam dunk. It was great, yeah. But and then we did the next one we did was the Avenue, and we kind of said we don't necessarily want to be in the parking business, so we worked with them on the land and gave them the land at a decent price, but also got some parking places out of it. So we ended up with getting the Avenue, and then the third one has been City Center, where the old Holiday Inn used to be, and that project is now coming up, and it's going to have apartments, it's going to have offices, it's going to have hotels and motels both in there. But when you get finished with it, you're going to end up with a dynamite selection of places to go, all centered around Big Spring Park. And on the third one, we got paid for our land. We got paid for our land, and we kept one section of land as part of the city, and did a long-term lease on it. Okay. So it worked out pretty well, but it was really fascinating as we did the urban developments. We really thought that we would get all 30 and under, people in there. And it wasn't really 30 and under. It was a lot of people who was double income, no kids, who were 50 and above, were tired of cleaning gutters and tired of having to keep up a house and do all this. They said, "Hey, we'll go live in this apartment, and we want to live downtown, and we can walk around the downtown here."
So don't even need an Uber to get home.
Yeah,
you can just go.
Yeah, but it works out fantastic, and and we've been fortunate. Those 3 urban developments plus the one at Madison Square, which will be an urban development, which will tie to Research Park, gives you a place that people can live and work and play all in the same area. And is as they say in the planning world, is the best of all worlds, because you've got all 3 of those elements sitting there.
Mm-hmm. And Will just kind of touched on this too. So Uber that getting into this town, and
just let me throw this in there too, kind of like the food trucks, a lot of cities have fought rideshare.
Yeah,
Huntsville, it just seemed like open arms.
And it's a great option for people that are actually coming to visit our city, visit the community. And not only does it give travelers an option, but it also creates income for the residents of Huntsville that possibly have that 9 to 5er, and then they get home and they go, the grass is cut, the kids are fed, I'm going to activate this app and I'm going to go to work for a few hours. And then it's just an awesome alternative as far as transportation in the city of Huntsville. Can you tell us a little bit about how the Uber got here?
Uber was really interesting. I mean, they came and wanted to come, and we had a couple of discussions, and they'd say, "We don't want to do this, don't want to do that, we're not going to do this." Okay, fine, we'll work with you, and we worked through the process. And it's not necessarily fighting them, but you want to put them on the same playing field or level playing field as your taxi drivers who have been here for a long time. And so we tried to work with both of them and work through it, and it ended up coming out as a good deal for everybody. Uber is a good company. Lyft is a good company. Both of those, you need both of those in your community.
Okay.
And we notice a lot of people who says, "Hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have dinner and I'm going to have a couple of glasses of wine, so I'll just take Uber down there, and then I'll get Uber to take me back."
Guilty.
And there are some people who have said, "Hey, I'm going to set up an Uber account for my kids so that if they're out, and we got to do something." hey, do it on my dime. I don't care. Call Uber at any time. You can call them to come take you back to get your car later on. Right. But just don't drive when you're overserved. And it really is. It's a great way to make sure that you don't drive when you're.
That's a big message that we try and send out to all of the people that tune in to Huntsville Insider is that, please, guys, be responsible in everything that you do. I mean, everyone has a brain rattle around between their ears. Use it.
And let me kind of with that. So, I mean, I've been downtown, later on the weekends and stuff. Yeah. It can get kind of crazy with cabs and Ubers going all over the place trying to pick everybody up. And I don't know exactly, what the interaction is, say, between your office and the police department, but it seems as though the police are very supportive. Obviously they don't want people being, irresponsible with picking up and dropping off and that kind of stuff. But it seems kind of like they understand that that's a service that is helping people get home safe. Oh,
they do. And, we've worked with them very closely. We had some problems at one point with, over capacity on some of the roads where a lot of the restaurants opened up real late and they were coming out. And we didn't want anybody to get hit, so we just closed off that section of the road, and they would come around, so it'd make it a little bit harder to
disperse it just a little bit more.
Disperse your traffic, and they're always thinking of, and I really take my hat off to the police because they watch it on a constant basis. If they see a way to improve it, they'll improve it. Right. If they see that they need a taxi lane here or an Uber lane here where we can stop and people can get their Uber or their taxi and go from there, and they know where to come find them. That's a great thing. But our guys are always looking for a way to do a little bit better for the public, and I think they recognize as much as we do that anybody who you can keep from driving when they shouldn't is the best thing they can do.
Absolutely. A couple other things real quick before we move on to 2018. Yep. And I was told you were probably going to undersell yourself in this, but I'm going to ask anyway. How many jobs have come to Huntsville since you've been mayor?
Oh gosh, we used in the last election, we were using 17,000. Now they're saying 20,000, between 17 and 20,000. And we've used 20,000 in some of it, but they've come because we started working 9 years ago, with a plan and a strategy. And we worked really hard those first couple of years, especially the recruiting industry, going to the symposiums. Here you go to the Quad A Symposium, the AUSA Symposium, Space Symposium, and all those. And you go, and it's the biggest conglomeration of the businesses who are in those industries that there is. And when you're there, you're able to see some decision makers, and you can talk to decision makers about, hey, what are your plans? Are you going to expand your business, or you're not in Huntsville? Would you like to come here? And spending those first 3 or 4 years doing that while everybody else was somewhere else made you the only show in town. And that really helped us out, because once everybody just started talking about, hey, it's time to expand now, we're coming out of this recession, let's start to expand, they thought of us, because we had done the precursor work to make sure that we had set the parameters there for them to be able to move.
It's absolutely incredible, man.
Awesome.
Jobs, guys.
That's a lot. And I'll say this. I mean, I think, Alabama's got some great cities, some great municipalities and stuff like that. To me, it seems like you can just feel there's something different going on in Huntsville than you see in it. Because, in a lot of places, people are trying to figure out, what do we do with this old building over here? Or how do we make this, an entertainment district? How do we bring people back in, to say the city center?
It's real interesting. You go across the state. Every section of the state has some really bright people there who want to work to make their community better, their city better, or whatever. And you go over to Russellville, they've added 1,000 jobs. They have 11,000 people. They've added 1,000 jobs over the last 2 years. You go over and look at Guntersville. They've only got 9,200 people, but they've added 1,000 jobs. Now, some of those people come from Albertville, Boaz, and some of the Arab and some of the other areas. But they've added 1,000 jobs, and so you go across the Tennessee Valley, as we've grown, other communities have grown too, and vice versa. As they've grown, we've grown. You know, we got 110,000 people a day who come into the city of Huntsville. They work here. They go out to another community. But there's 60,000 people who live in the city of Huntsville who go out to another community. They work there, then they come back into Huntsville. So, you know, I think the what they say about rising tides float all ships and everything. I think we're all part of those ships that are in the ocean, which is North Alabama, and we've all been able to benefit from that.
Right. So, how do you take that success? Take it to the rest of the state.
Yeah, push it to a state level. This is like we promised earlier to the folks at home. We were going to get to know a little bit about Mayor Battle, about where you came from, about what you're interested in. But we also want to know, jumping in head first, what can we expect from Governor Tommy Battle if that does in fact happen?
You know, I think it's some of the same thing. You know, we've been able to put together plans and strategies that have moved us forward and will move us forward in the future. And can we take that same plan and strategy to Montgomery? You know, do we need roads? Yes, we do. We need to figure out a way to take care of our roads and our road problems and infrastructure problems in the state of Alabama. It's been on the heading list of what we need to do for the last 5-10 years, really. Education. Do we need to improve education? Yes. You know, there are great pockets of great education going on throughout the state, but then there are pockets that we really need to work on because it makes a disparate system. Right. And one of the things those people, when they come in, when they bring the Polarises in, the Remingtons in and everything else, they're going to say, can you provide me a career-ready workforce coming out of your high schools? And if you can say yes, you can check off that box. But then if my execs bring their kids here, where they want to put them in your public school system, and you've got to be able to say yes to check off that box. So the key is that you've got to be able to, you know, you got to have education, you got to have quality life, and then that infrastructure. If you can put all three of those together in the state of Alabama, I tell people, just think what it would be like. We added 20,000 jobs in our congressional district up here in North Alabama. If we added 20,000 jobs here, and we did it in every congressional district, we'd add 140,000 jobs to the state of Alabama over the next 8 to 10 years. And if we did that, just think what it would do for the whole state, and you know, and take care of our unemployment problem. It would give people who have a job a chance at a better job, and you know, and all the other problems that we've got, prisons, mental health, Medicaid, et cetera, et cetera. All of a sudden, it gives you the money to be able to take care of those. So, you know, you've definitely got to try to grow out of your problems. You got to have some great budgetary reforms, and make sure you do manage your budgets properly. When we came in, we were in you know, starting into that time when basically we had no money. You know, we were in a recession time, and so we came in and we immediately cut all departments 10%. We put a hiring freeze on. We've kept that hiring freeze on all the way through now, and we tried to keep our government as lean as it could be. You know, I think there may be some places that you can cut in government. There's not many left, so everybody's leaned themselves down. But we've got to make sure that we are as lean as we can be as a government, and then move forward with, you know, growth and how we grow as a state.
Absolutely,
completely agree. This coming from, like you said, you came into a recession, and that was 2008. So 2008, 2009, you came in with the recession going on. So you ran that 4 years. What were the major things that you accomplished that you think that you could impact the entire state of Alabama with?
I think the first 4 years, what we accomplished was we proved the need for roads. You know, it wasn't just a want; it was a have to. We have to improve our road system.
That was the Take Back Our Roads project.
Restore our roads.
Restore our roads. I'm sorry.
We went back. You know, we did press conferences on every street corner where we had congestion for about 10 weeks all through the summer, sweated out there during the summer. But we convinced people that there was a need there, and it was an education process about doing it. We started on our education that first 4 years. Casey Wardinski came in after the second year, I think, and we started on education and education reform, and did that well. We also set up our infrastructure so that we were ready to build, and we were able to set up that infrastructure without spending everything that we had by setting up for the Redstone Gateway project. Most people do. Yeah, didn't. But we set up for that Redstone Gateway project, which gave us some infrastructure in place so that we were ready to move forward. We something small, but we bought a sewer system over in Limestone County, which gave us some capability to expand over in Limestone County. And quite frankly, that's now where Polaris is, and that's where GE Aviation is, and that's where our TVA mega site is. So, all those things were kind of precursors to growth, but had to be in place to make sure that we could really take off the next 8 years and be ready to grow as quickly as necessary.
So with your background, with your background in commercial real estate and business and financing and things like that, is that one of the key factors that makes your mayor's office a success, or is it more the pulse of the city type attitude, or is just a general understanding of how it all clicks in together?
I think it's generally teamwork. Absolutely. It is working together as a team, making sure that everybody gets a place at the table, making sure that your Chamber of Commerce has a place at the table, that the city has a place at the table, the Huntsville Utilities has a place at the table, your Huntsville Utilities, your county commission, your sister city of Madison has a place at the table. And if you can pull everybody together and work, and one of the worst things in politics is ego. Ego kills more projects than anything. But if you can pull it together and you can come together as a group and say, is this good for the whole community? And I think you've made real progress, and that's going to be key to our success, is being able to keep that whole group together and make sure that whoever's there recognizes that you weren't elected to fight, you were elected to work together and work together for the common good.
There you go.
Well, and I'm going to geek out for just a second.
Okay, geek out.
But,
Will the geek.
Right.
Okay.
The mayor just called me a geek.
He does this every time.
No, so the governor of Alabama,
yeah.
A lot of folks don't necessarily realize this, but it's a fairly weak position compared to other governors. And I say that because the governor's veto can be overridden by a simple majority. The same votes that it took to pass the bill can override the governor's veto. And so a lot of times in gubernatorial elections, we hear about laws that we want to pass. We want to change this, of course, Jesus and football and all sorts of stuff. Not that any of those are bad, but it seems like the governor's, practically speaking, biggest job is to go out and recruit industry to come to Alabama. Yeah. And a lot of what you're talking about, the infrastructure and all that, kind of feeds into that, right? And so to me, it's interesting, and I tried to look some stuff up on this last night. I'm not sure if he's announced or not. He's got a website that makes it look like he's running, but Mayor Maddox from Tuscaloosa seems to, like I said, maybe he's announced. I couldn't find it, but seems to be running. Mm-hmm. To me, that's a really interesting dynamic that for the first time in at least what I can remember, you have not somebody running from Montgomery, but two mayors running to be the governor of the state of Alabama.
Yeah. That's the interesting thing that we got out of all this is that, we're mayors. We're down, a lot of people, I say it's all theory versus reality. People have these theories. So theory, you shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that, and most theories start out with you should not do. But the reality is that you've got to do something. You're an elected official. Your job is to take care of that person who's sitting there hurting or has a problem. You've got to figure out how to do it, and how to do it within the means of what you're supposed to be doing as a government. Should we be doing this, and should this be part of what we do, and how do we get, and if it's not something government should do you go over to your churches and get them to do it, or do you go over to somewhere else and ask them to do it? In the governor's job, it is a lot of putting out an image for Alabama. Right now, I've got on my thing, Huntsville a smart place. I'd love to be able to put Alabama a smart place.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
Instead of us, beating ourselves up because, hey, we got 47, 49th, and thank God for Mississippi. We can...
Right.
We can
just
really
have that bumper sticker.
Yeah, we can move forward, and we can be proud of our state because when you go throughout this state and you go to community after community after community, you go to the center, and there's 20 people who are on the Republican Executive Committee, but they're community leaders, and they want to do good, better for center, and they want the rest of the state to do better too. And you go to Russellville, and you meet 50 people who are from there who are great people, and they want to do better for their community, or go to Dothan, or Troy, or go to Mobile. When you meet those kind of people, you know that we have a smart state. Right. We have a great group of people in this state, and how we can corral them and get them together and start working for all of us work together for that better state. That's part of the key, and that's going to be part of the key of being able to move forward.
Well, and I got really excited when I saw that you had announced for governor, just because
I did too.
I think Huntsville is an incredibly special place. It's in so many ways at the cutting edge of so many things going on, not just in Alabama, but in the nation.
Worldwide.
A lot of cities, like I said, they're trying to figure out a way to accomplish what you've accomplished here in Huntsville. Mm-hmm. And so seeing you announce for governor and thinking that could be Alabama, I got really excited about it.
Good.
Got really excited about it.
It's very exciting times. It really is. In closing, we're going to close down here in just a few minutes, but Will, do you have one more thing?
I do, and I'm going to throw this out there and throw it right back if you want to. Sure. So if you get elected, what are the chances that I could come swim in the Alabama pool in the governor's mansion?
We.
Yes, we.
We'll have Will and Mike, and we'll do a podcast around the pool. And when we get finished with the podcast, you can jump in the pool afterwards.
That's
okay.
Hey, we have it.
We don't provide towels, though. You're going to have to bring your own towels.
We can handle that.
Right.
We can handle that.
So, in closing, Mayor Battle, what is your message to the state of Alabama right now?
I think the message to the state is that we got a great state.
We do.
And we should be very proud of our state. We should be proud of what our state does. And we have a ways to go. We have things to do, but I think we can take those on. And I guess my message is running for governor is that, we've got the plan, we've got the strategy. We put it together 10 years ago. We can show the successes of it, and we can show that we have a proven record that we've had 20,000 jobs added, $2 billion worth of investment added, and we've had taken on education, taken on all those others. And because we've done that, we've got the formula put together that we can move right into the governor's office and start moving forward. And hopefully we can do that and make sure that this state becomes better and better. The state that we come into as governor in 4 years and 8 years from now is a much better state than it is right now.